Hearing from many other people that things just kind of needed to be reset and they felt kind of lost.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about goal refreshes. Do you need a goal refresh? I think a lot of us are looking at our goals right now and trying to figure out whether we want to keep them or not. And really it all comes down to one question though. Do you see the stagnation that you're experiencing as temporary or permanent? Because the answer to that question will determine a lot of things. If the stagnation is permanent, it's probably time to abandon those goals that are no longer serving us. We'll talk in an upcoming video about how to say goodbye to goals. But sometimes we have to acknowledge what our current reality is and move forward to set new goals that excite us and are actually possible. Because honestly, there's nothing more discouraging than having goals that are impossible and just can't be accomplished no matter what. We'll talk about that too. But perhaps your goal was related to a job you had and you no longer have that job. Or maybe it's just something you can no longer physically do. Maybe it's something that seemed like a great idea at the time, but now you're just not so sure. The world around you has changed and some things happen where it no longer excites you. It's okay to acknowledge that that change has happened and move on. Sometimes the stagnation is temporary. Look at your other goals and maybe see if you can move those forward instead while you wait. Instead of saying no to the goal, just say not yet. We'll talk more in a future video about why you want to limit the number of goals you're working on at any one time anyway. So it's okay if you can't work on one or two of your goals right now. Just take the time to focus and push forward other goals that you have and work on the ones you can work on right now. If you've seen any of my videos on the goal inserts that I sell in my Etsy shop, you'll notice that I have room for 8 annual goals and only 5 goals after that. This gives me permission to press pause on goals where it might not be their time yet. It could be external circumstances, it could be reasons why my schedule is just busy for other reasons, work, other opportunities, family obligations. I just don't have the time to work on them right now. Or maybe as it has been in early 2020, maybe just the resources I need are not available or they're not available in a timely manner. Internal circumstances could also be an issue. Maybe you don't have the knowledge that you need yet about how to move a goal forward, or maybe it has something to do with the amount of energy you have available. You've decided to commit energy to something else, and so you just don't have enough left over to deal with whatever that goal is. That's a good time to press pause on that goal and move forward and work on something else. And sometimes the two mix. I don't have the knowledge I need to work on something right now, and I don't have the ability to network with people to get that knowledge. So just know it's okay to pause a goal. This is when a good review process comes into play. That way, you know that you're reviewing everything regularly, and so you can continually reevaluate, is it time to work on this goal yet or not? That gives you the opportunity without fear to press pause on a goal whenever you need to. So your last option is to pivot a goal. We'll talk a little bit about the pluses and minuses of SMART goals in a future video. I have some opinions on that. But you might be able to accomplish a goal in a different way than you initially intended. You might also be able to take advantage of some new circumstances to allow you to push a goal forward in a different manner. That's what I mean when I talk about pivoting a goal. So let's say your goal is health related and your preferred method of working out is running. Now this is completely hypothetical because this is not me. Like, I can tell you that right now. Not me, I'm not a runner. But perhaps the weather isn't cooperating, perhaps you can't get to the gym. Can you choose a different type of exercise that would kind of get you to the same end result? So maybe you can do high intensity interval training in your living room. Maybe you have a treadmill at your house and so you can run on a treadmill. Maybe it's a different form of cross training or a different sport that you can play that will get you to the same end result. The key to being able to pivot a goal is to know what end result it is that you're actually trying to get to. Generally, there's more than one way to reach a destination unless your goal is very, very specific. And if your goal is very, very specific, would you be okay with a similar but broader end goal? So let's say your goal is to run a marathon by the end of the year. But let's talk about current realities right now. They're not running any marathons, and the gyms are closed. So you might throw your hands up and be like, you know what? All is lost, forget it, never mind. But think about it in some other ways. How fast do you need to be able to run to be able to complete a marathon? So maybe you focus on the distance, the timing of the mile, or a running program instead. Maybe it's not the exact end result that you wanted, but you know what? When that next marathon comes up and you're able to run it, you're ready. And this is just the icing on the top. So that being said, I think the key to revisiting or setting goals during uncertain times is to make your goal really about the results, the destination you want, and not so much about how you get there, or maybe even what it looks like. And I know that's kind of sacrilege in the goal setting world, especially for people that are extreme followers of SMART goals. But it gives you the flexibility to make adjustments on the fly. And I think in times like this, that's kind of what we need, is that little bit of flexibility. So, you know, maybe we have a destination in mind, maybe it's really specific, but go ahead now and figure out what alternatives are really close to that I would be fine with. That I could say, yes, I accomplished my goal if I at least meet these benchmarks. It also gives you the ability to take advantage of opportunities that might present themselves on the fly. Because sometimes when you're so focused on something specific, you miss opportunities that come your way that might get you an awful lot closer than you would be otherwise. Focus is good, but don't forget to stop and look in a broader fashion around you and make sure there's not a better way to get to the same end goal. So the next thing I wanted to do, hopefully you guys did your homework and grabbed your goals, is I wanted to switch to an overhead view and look at goals. Not knowing what yours are or how old, I thought I'd walk you through some of my goals and some sample ones. They'll be kind of a mixture. And so go ahead, take a moment and go find your goals and meet me back here in a second. I'll turn the camera around and then we can look at these together.
Okay, so in my intro video, I asked you to find a copy of your most recent set of goals. Not knowing what yours are or how old, I thought I'd walk you through some sample goals, including some of my own. So if you didn't watch the introductory video, or you are coming straight here from a different video, if you want to pause it, go grab your goals and come back, that would be great. Otherwise, you can learn and then do this with your own goals later. So make sure you have a copy of your goals out so you can play along at home. All right, so first thing you want to do is look at your goals. Are there any that excite you still? Maybe reviewing them sparks why you wrote them in the first place. Maybe looking at them right now sparks ideas and makes you want to go grab a piece of paper and have a brainstorming session. Or maybe you even want to get to work on it right now. So it's okay if there are some goals that you like and want to keep, but that don't give you that exact energy boost I was just describing. We'll be in life situations sometimes where energy is spread a little thin, so the spark might be a little smaller. But the fact that you're attracted to them is enough. So go ahead and put a star next to those. Next, you want to look for the goals that are no longer possible for one reason or another. For those that you think have a permanent status change associated with them, put an X next to them. For those that seem like they might just need a temporary hold, you still want to do it, but you can't do it right this moment, put an arrow to the right. And then finally look for the goals that don't excite you or maybe even repel you at this point. So just think of it like the Marie Kondo of goal reviews. What no longer does or never did spark joy. We're going to talk about wants versus shoulds in goals in a future video, but for now, go ahead and make a question mark next to these goals. They're on the bubble for being kept. So look back. Are there any goals that don't have a mark? Check and make sure that they shouldn't be in one of the previous three categories. However, they could just be kind of a meh sort of a goal. You don't want to do it necessarily, but you need to for one reason or another. If you're like me and don't love fitness, my health goals can fall into this category if I'm not careful. These goals are the ones that might be good to look at wording and refreshing them to make them more attractive to you. They may also need either better definition or broadening so that they're appealing again. All right, so now we have all that information. I have sample goals on the front, my goals on the back. So just to kind of run through, this was an example I was using earlier in this video, talking about running a marathon by the end of 2020. It's your kind of traditional SMART goal. It has a timeline. It has a definite, measurable aspect to it. For some people that's realistic. If you're me, it's not. Nor is that something I want to do. But we had talked about the fact that perhaps they're not going to be holding marathons between now and the end of the year. So this might be one of those that's no longer possible for one reason or another, but it also might be one you put on a temporary hold to next year. So this has a couple different options. We also talked about pivoting the goal and rewording so you get a similar result, but not necessarily the exact one that you talked about. So this would be a type of a goal that would kind of be up to you, whether you don't think it's going to happen at all, or if you just want to kind of put a temporary hold on it till next year or later in the year. Improving presentation and public speaking skills. I know there are a lot of companies out right now that are not doing in-person meetings. or they're not even doing in-person training. So this is another one that you might be able to pivot. One suggestion is to actually either get out your phone, if you have a camera that has video capabilities, and actually practice. Practice in front of the camera. You would think it doesn't translate, but it actually does. So at least you get used to pacing yourself, not talking super fast. Bonus, if you ever get it into the point where you have to do a media interview, the camera won't scare you. And then you can actually send it to other people and have them watch it and give you critiques. The other thing you might be able to do is like a virtual meeting, if you can find a group that's able to do a virtual presentation and they can critique your skills. So that might be one way you can change this one. Start networking. So this is one that might be a little difficult to do, especially in person. Most places are just barely opening right now. I say right now as in we're tail end of May 2020. So a lot of states and localities are just now giving the green light for people to come in at a very minimal capacity. So a lot of the networking groups are not yet meeting. Most of them have moved to an online or virtual sort of platform, so that might be one way to do it. This is another one of those pivot types of goals. If you're not going to be looking at doing in-person networking, look at other ways to go about that. So maybe it's reaching out to people you haven't talked to in a while, making connections through friends, or even just a phone call. Something, it may not be exactly what you thought it was going to look like attend 3 networking events every single month. But, you know, maybe you're changing it, pivoting it, and it's reach out to 2 people a month to see if they have a connection to this other third person that I want to meet. So you can change that. Volunteer regularly. So this is another one that is probably going to look a lot different for the time being. You may already have some volunteer obligations that you had committed yourself to. They may be shut down right now. They may not be operating like they were before. So this is something where you reach out to that organization and figure out how you can still help. So there may be something you might be able to do from home. You may just have to find a different organization in the meantime if it's something that's really important to you. And the last one I think is kind of interesting, wake up early. There's so many videos out on YouTube right now about wake up at 5 a.m. and get all these things done, which is a noble goal. But I think, and we are going to talk about heat mapping again because I did have a request to talk about that. I do think there are times of the day when you are more productive than others. And not everybody is productive at 5 a.m. in the morning, or even at 6 or 7. There are some of us, like me, who gets rolling and my brain wakes up about 9. So I could get up at 5, but it just means that I'm going to have 3 hours where I walk around like a zombie until my brain wakes up and I can start thinking. So waking up early, it is not always necessarily the be-all end-all. I wanted to start with that. But the other thing to keep in mind is that with all the things that are going on, a lot of people have massive shifts in energy. Normally they're an energetic person, but with all the change, with all of the things that they're dealing with, they may be very low energy right now. This may be something you want to postpone. So it may be something you reevaluate monthly and see, is this something that I have enough energy to do again, that I have enough mental capacity to commit to? So there are some things that you may want to just postpone because you recognize that your energy level and your personal commitment just isn't there at the moment. So I wanted to talk you through those. And so then these are mine, and I'll scooch them up. They're not quite all on the screen. So most of these I'm going to be able to keep. I'd mentioned we'll talk about SMART goals later. There's a reason mine are fairly broad, and it allows me to pivot but still keep going in the same direction that I want to go. So I'm still keeping my health goal. The wording of this, it makes it much more attractive to me than what I have used in the past. So we'll talk about how to word your goals because that's very important. Still purposefully tending my marriage, even though the 2 of us are several states apart at the moment and I haven't seen him in months. but I have a trip scheduled, so I'm excited about that. I'm still working with you guys, growing my side hustle and my community, trying to provide positive, valuable information and resources to everyone. I'm still somewhat working on cultivating a home that fosters rest and connection. This is one that's kind of not been postponed, but it's just on the back burner. I recognize that I don't have a lot of energy, and so if you watched my video on my weekly review and Plan With Me, I talked about I was having like a existential crisis when it comes to cleaning right now. I need to find something that speaks to my energy level but still kind of maintains the house, because I recognize it's not a good thing to go through those massive cycles where you don't do anything and then it takes you 2 days to clean and then you're exhausted and you don't want to do it again. So I need to find some level of maintenance that's doable, that doesn't feel like I'm always cleaning or doing these massive cleaning and then exhaustion cycles. So still trying to figure that out. I did, I'm excited to say, finish paying off my student and car loans. So I am now on this snowball funds into savings portion of this goal. It's very exciting for me to get those paid off. The next one is creating routines and review processes that put my day job, for lack of a better phrase, responsibilities on autopilot. With everything that's been going on, there is no autopilot right now. Let's just be honest. So yeah, this is one that's kind of pivoting a little bit. Mostly I'm just being very thoughtful about how I'm prioritizing things, because being president of the Southern California Rental Housing Association this year has actually taking probably at least 50% of my time right now between meetings, and with everything going on and rental housing kind of being at the forefront of a lot of the conversations. I think I've mentioned I've had a lot of media interviews and conversations with people. So this is taking up a lot of my time and energy right now, which is fine. I had anticipated that was going to happen, and so I had rearranged a lot of my commitments so that it could take time if it needed to. Deepen my relationship with God. This is one that kind of is this up and down cycle. I was doing really well for a while, mostly because everything was on kind of a set routine where I did it a certain time each day, I did certain things, and then everything got thrown into chaos. So this is another one that I'm finding a new normal for right now, since I'm not leaving the house and it's super easy just to sit down at the computer and start working, and then I look up and I'm like, oh, I've missed half of my morning routine. So anyway, this one here, as I mentioned, things being postponed, this is being postponed, and I cannot talk and write at the same time generally. It's being actually replaced. So it's being replaced with this goal setting series. When I came up with the quarterly e-zine, it was something last fall. I was looking for a passion project, I think is what would be the best way to refer to it. Something that is just for me, something that excites me, that I want to do. And this kind of became more of a massive undertaking than I had the time for. And as I was looking at my own goals and hearing from many other people that things just kind of needed to be reset and they felt kind of lost, that's where this goal setting series came into play. And so I felt that that was actually something that was needed more now than the zine. So this is something that I'm putting on hold in favor of the goal setting series, because I think if you've watched any of the videos where I've talked about it, I actually anticipate that this series will go through the end of the year into the beginning of next. So it is actually a fairly large undertaking. So even though this is kind of a subset of, providing positive, valuable information, because this is so large, I feel like it is fine to be its own goal for the year, because it will take that long. So anyway, this is kind of where my goals are ending up. I'm keeping them except for this one. This one's being put on hold. I think the way that I had put my goals together, everything was able to kind of stay as is. But this is the time for you to take a look at your goals. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to do a goal hot wash, which I'll talk a little bit about what that term is, and how to figure out what's wrong with the goal and whether it can be fixed. So that's why I haven't told you to toss any of your goals out yet. It's always good to learn from the past so we can do things better in the future. So set aside your piece of paper with your notes so you have it for next Saturday, and we'll take a look at how to evaluate a goal. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. As I mentioned before, if they're related, that's great. If they're unrelated, that's fine too. I definitely want to make sure I'm answering all your questions. So if our conversation today sparked a question that you wanted answered, please go ahead and leave it down below. And I will see you next Saturday. Thank you for watching. Bye.